All right, if you've trickled in since we started, we're going to start here in about 1 minute. We're just letting people filter in here still. All right, well, it is 9:03. I think it's probably time to get started. Well, thank you to you all for joining us here this morning. It is a rainy Saturday morning where we are here. Unfortunately, not a good day to attend a farmer's market or to be a farmer trying to sell at a farmer's market. But nonetheless, we're excited to talk to you about some lessons and activities that pair well with farmer's market lessons in your classroom. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here today. I also want to do a special shout out here to our sponsors here today, the Illinois Specialty Growers Association. Those of you who fill out your reflection at the end of our session here, we're going to send you a special gift from Specialty Growers as well. All right, so our theme in June is farmers markets, and our sub-theme is nutrition. So we've got 3 lessons that go along with that here in the month of June. Available on the blog page for this session for this month is our schedule. So you can see that here on the right-hand side. And with that, we'll go ahead and get into some book recommendations, as we often do when we start out here. So I've got 4 books I want to recommend to you. One of these is a new book to us that I'm really excited about. So I'll start here on the left with Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. Rainbow Rowell is a pretty well-known young adult author, typically writes chapter books. Pumpkinheads is her first graphic novel. So she partnered with Faith Erin Hicks, and it's a really cool book about agritourism, essentially. So it's 2 high school seniors who are getting ready to go off to college and kind of start their adult lives, and they're spending their final summer at a big pumpkin farm, a pumpkin patch, like a pick your own pumpkin patch, and they're kind of learning more about each other here in this final summer together. So it's a very fast read, but it's a really good kind of character-driven story. And also is just a really cool look into agritourism and is pretty accurate with how agritourism works as well. So that's a good probably middle school, lower level high school book. Maybe upper elementary could do well with that graphic novel, but it's a really good one. The next book we have here is Farmer Will Allen and the Growing Table. Will Allen is a former professional basketball player, and he's become a big name in urban agriculture and has kind of reinvented how we think of urban agriculture in a lot of ways. And so he's in the Chicagoland area, and this is a biographical book about his story and his path to becoming an urban farmer. Our next book is Sleep Tight Farm. This is one of my probably top 5 just books of all time in general. I really like this book. It's a better book to probably use in the winter months because it's about putting the farm to sleep for the winter. But it's a really good, it kind of goes through the year and shows you all the different things that this small specialty crop farm does throughout the year and how things change based on the season. So it's a really cool book to talk about the seasons and also to talk about just a really unique farm that grows a lot of different things, including things that they would sell at a farmer's market. And the last book is a new one here. This is called Try It, How Frida Kaplan Changed the Way We Eat. Frida Kaplan was the first female wholesale produce buyer. She was on the West Coast, and she transformed a lot of the foods that we take for granted that we have now. She was one of the first people, if not the first person, to introduce them into the wholesale market and where they started to be distributed and tried throughout the United States. And so she kind of unintentionally had a big impact on the foods that are imported and the foods that are distributed throughout the country. And so really cool biographical text. The author interviewed her daughters and granddaughters who are still part of that business. And it's a really neat book and kind of shines a light on an underrepresented part of how we get our food, basically. All right, so those are my book recommendations for you. I'll turn it over to Stephanie here to talk about some of hers.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I have 4 books as well, and most of them are going to be geared towards your lower level grade school, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And then Stepping Stones, which I'll talk about, is another graphic novel geared more towards our junior high students. 5th, 6th, 7th grade would be perfect for that book. But the first one I'm going to talk about is Harlem Grown, and this is based on a true story where in New York, we we have an area that's a little more impoverished than other areas, and there's a vacant lot where students decide to turn it into a garden. And so the students are learning about how to take care of different fruits and vegetables, and how to work with the soil, and how to grow food for the families in that area that have maybe have a harder time getting food or affording food from different grocery stores. And so it's a community building book. It's just fantastic, and it's based on a true story. Our second book is Stepping Stones. Again, it's a graphic novel, and it's based on a student who is dealing with changes in her life. Her parents have been divorced, and she is moving with her mom out onto her farm. Her mom's, goal is to have this farm and take her produce to a farmer's market. And so she, expects her daughter to help out. While then the daughter is also meeting mom's boyfriend and her daughters. And so it's a really, it's a great book for young students, especially female students, to really learn about how to handle different situations, changes that are out of your control, but also then learning about, responsibility and taking care of the farm, and then what it means to run a business and run the farmer's market and all of that. And it's such a great story, a very, very quick read, and a graphic novel. It's one of my favorites that I've read this year. Michelle's Garden is the next book, and this is based on our previous First Lady, Michelle Obama, the garden that she had created at the White House, and had invited students in the area to come out and learn how to take care of a garden. And the great thing about this is that Michelle had to also learn how to take care of all of the plants and vegetables, and how to care for the soil and all of that. So she was learning right along with the students. And so this is a story based on getting the garden going and all of that. The last book I want to talk about is On the Farm at the Market. And this is a great book to introduce students to what it takes, farmers getting everything ready and prepared, and then taking their crop that they grew to a farmer's market and selling it. And so it gives a little bit more detail about, the ins and outs of all of that. So those are my 4 books. All right, so our June theme challenges, we've been having these challenges every single month this year. And so our final challenges for this year are going to be based on our farmers market and nutrition. So our classroom challenge for June is going to be to design your own farmers market stand. So the challenge is, how are you going to organize your product, your produce, whatever you're selling, to draw in that customer attention? How are you going to set up the tables? Are you going to design a sign that really, pulls in that customer attention? And so that's our little challenge. Then our family cooking challenge is to just eat the rainbow. Try to find fruits and vegetables. Whoops, I'm sorry about that. My cat wants to present. Eat a fruit or vegetable of all of the different colors of the rainbow, and try new things that you've never tried before. And then our family engagement challenge is to do our farmers market scavenger hunt. Now we, on our blog, we created a scavenger hunt, and we have that posted on the blog. So when you are going to your farmers markets this summer, go ahead, print that out, and see if you can finish the scavenger hunt.
All right, well, I'll transition us into our lessons for June. So we have 3 lessons. Our first week lesson is called Plant Maze. This is a brand new lesson we just came up with. And the idea is to teach students a little bit about the concept of phototropism, so plant sensitivity to light. And so the idea is that you take a shoebox or other small cardboard box, and students would create a maze for a plant to find its way through in order to reach the light through a hole at the top of the shoebox. Another way you could do it is to actually put a little LED light in the top of the shoebox, and I think that would make it happen even faster. But I wanted to test this out, and so I did this. So I have one. So I did this with my son 10 days ago. We planted this, and so I planted peas. I'll kind of talk a little bit about seeds that would work best for this. But here's my my plant maze. So you can see 10 days of growth. it works pretty well. And so they're almost ready to start popping out of this hole at the top of the maze here. That's pretty cool for 10 days. To give you an idea of how the plants grow differently, so I planted the same peas and put them under grow lights for 10 days. And so this is what they would look like if they just had light instead of trying to find their way through the darkness there. So a cool way to introduce that phototropism, how plants will actually move and bend to the light to try to seek the light. Another cool thing you can do with this, and so I recommend using peas for this because they're a plant that already wants to grow tall, and so they'll grow tall pretty quickly. I actually, if you've seen me talk of anything before, I have a small farm myself, and one of the things we grow are microgreens, which are teeny tiny versions of plants you would normally grow all the way to have some kind of crop from. So this is actually one of the crops that we grow are pea shoots is what they're called. And so these are actually completely edible at this stage. And so, if you wanted to take it a step further with your students, you could have them actually try them. And if you compare the taste of these pea shoots with the pea shoots in the plant maze, they're going to taste differently because these pea shoots have chlorophyll. From the light that they produce chlorophyll, these have no chlorophyll. And so the taste is actually different because of that. So a cool way to kind of talk about some of those other plant processes and photosynthesis and how that actually impacts the food we eat and how it actually tastes as well. So lots of cool experiments you could do with this. On the lesson plan, I also give you an idea for you can buy small little LED lights and coin cell batteries. And you can even do a little kind of mini electricity unit where you tape the coin cell battery to these little LED lights and it powers the light, and you could actually have that in the top of your plant maze to shine a little more light in there to kind of get the plant to grow up there faster. So I'm really excited about that one. I think it's a cool experiment and something that could offer some other potential experiments as well in your classroom. So that's Plant Maze. I will remind you all too, we do have the Q&A feature working. So if anyone has any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to contribute, feel free to add those in, and we'll kind of try to periodically check those out and see if we can respond. So that's our first week's Plant Maze. Stephanie's going to talk about our second week.
All right, so our second week is going to be our specialty crop self-portrait. And this is one of our newer lessons that we just created. And basically you're going to get the template that you can see right there on the screen. And there's just a variety of different fruits and vegetables. And then you're going to give those to your students. They will color, just choose whichever ones they want, color those, and then cut them out. We do have two templates for the head. So we have a pumpkin template, which is the one that was used for this example that you can see on the screen. And then we also have a watermelon that they can choose from. So they'll choose their head template, and then they'll choose all of their features and then color and either tape or glue them on to create a little self-portrait. So the self-portrait on the screen is me, and I know that you could tell, but it's just a fun little activity and starting to introduce students to different types of fruits and vegetables. You can talk about, what are your favorite fruits and vegetables, looking at colors if you're doing this with younger students. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And then of course, you're looking at some art. And so this is actually based on an artist, which I don't have his name pulled up, Giuseppe. All of a sudden, I can't think of his last name, but he made a lot of paintings of self-portraits that used vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And so that's where this lesson comes from. And so it ties into that art history. You can definitely look at different styles of art when you're talking about this. So and then on the teacher resources page, there's a little background about the artist, and then a few different of his self-portraits or just portraits on there, so you can share those with your students as well.
It's Giuseppe Arcimboldo. He's an Italian painter. Yep.
Italian painter, yes. And so, and you can look into more of his work, but he has a handful of portraits where he's using fruits and vegetables, and then of course other different portraits as well. But that is a fun one that your students can do and then take home to their family. Going along with our nutrition, Chris, if you could go to the next slide. We have a few more nutrition lessons that we just really love, and not that we are using them for our June theme by any means, but just we wanted to remind you or introduce you to these lessons that we've had. Hungry Planet is one of our favorite books. The reading is more high school level, 9 through 12. However, the pictures that they have in there of all the families around the world have little captions that talk about where they're located, how much money they spend on groceries for a week, and what different groceries they have. What are the different commodities that they're eating and using for their meals? And so that can be explored at many different ages to introduce students that, not everybody in the world has the same types of foods based on where they are, what type of crop can be grown, looking at different environmental features, climate, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's a great way to start introducing the differences of different cultures around the world and different foods along with that. There's some great things that can be paired with that to bring our Hungry lesson or our Hungry Planet lesson down to junior high or even like 4th, 5th grade level. And that's Time Magazine had put out an article talking about what kids eat around the world. And so they talk about, not only just families, but what are kids actually eating in their schools, as snacks, what are some of their favorite different foods. And if you go to the website, you can just Google search what kids eat around the world, Time Magazine, and it'll bring up the article. And there are, a handful of different pictures like the ones that you can see where the child is laying down, and then all of their favorite foods and their normal, like common daily foods that they eat are, spread out around them. And so it's kind of fun to see the similarities and differences between what we eat here in America versus, in Europe and Asia and in different countries. But also there's, differences between families who live in America but have different cultural backgrounds. So that's another cool thing that you could start to talk to your students about. Then we have Apple Pie Journey, which is just such a fun little book. How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World is the book. And so we created a lesson that pairs with that. And basically this little girl, she wants to make an apple pie, but the market is closed. And so she travels the world to get all the different ingredients for the apple pie. And so the lesson itself challenges students to use a map. And so it's taking in that geography and map skills. And so to, trace the route that she takes and identify what countries she's finding those different commodities in. So that's another fun lesson for nutrition. If you're looking for more of food-based and where your food comes from and what people are eating around the world.
All right, so I'll talk about our final lesson for the month of June. This is seed tape. And so seed tape is something that you can buy at a garden center, a garden store. So it's essentially seeds that have been placed on a biodegradable piece of paper, essentially, that they're already spaced out perfectly, and you can plant in your garden instead of you measuring it out. Plant the seed tape, and then your plants will come up at the exact right measurement. So we looked into, can we make our own seed tape and have a do-it-yourself seed tape? And so I've got one here that I made using radish seeds. So this is a one-ply toilet paper. And essentially all you do is you wet it down with a mister, a spray bottle, and then you stick a ruler next to your toilet paper, and you lay your seeds out onto that damp toilet paper, fold it over itself twice to make kind of this little pocket, and mist it again and just kind of press it together, and it kind of binds those paper fibers together, and it keeps those seeds stuck in there at the exact right distances. And so then students could plant this in a school garden. They could take it home and plant it. It would work well for a variety of vegetables as well as for some flowers as well. There's a lot of good math connections here, thinking about how many seeds per foot, how many seeds per inch, that kind of thing. And then also just kind of figuring out how plants need to be spaced in order to grow them. There's also some potential for some experiments. Radishes are a good example. They grow really fast. So in 20 some days, you could be harvesting radishes. So this is something you could do in March or April, and then students could be harvesting them before the school year is even over. But radishes, typically they say plant them at, say, 1 inch or 2 inch spacing in the row, but actually you could plant 4 seeds together, skip 6 or 8 inches, plant another 4 seeds together. And as long as there's enough room in between each of those clusters of seeds, those radishes will still grow just fine. And so it could be a good experiment on, does the seed spacing that they'll tell you to do, does it actually work the best? Or are there other ways that we could do this that might be even easier? So there's some advantages for farmers, especially small scale growers, to plant a little bit in different densities to help with a variety of things such as weed pressure and ease of harvest and things like that. So that's our do-it-yourself seed tape activity, a quick and fun one, and something that students could actually take home and plant and eat the food that they grew. We've also paired this with our Soil AgMag Ag Venture. We've worked hard this year to create these Ag Venture one-page worksheets that go with all of our Ag Mags. And so we'll make sure that we link this on the blog page for today's session as well. And so this is a really good way to kind of engage students with reading their Ag Mag, and brings in a number of different literacy skills, but we also try to connect to some other content areas as well, pull in some math and those kind of things with there as well. And so those Ag Ventures are pretty great, and again, pair really well with our Ag Mags. All right, well, that was our final lesson for the month of June. We want to show you I've got a couple of new video projects that I'm working on over the next year. And so we wanted to show you a couple of those to kind of introduce you to those. The first one is bee school. So I used to be a beekeeper 4 or 5 years ago. I decided to get back into it, and I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to share that with students. And so I'm filming these short videos every 2 weeks. So they'll come out every other Wednesday. And the idea is that there's something that they're made specifically for students that you could show in class. And I'm trying to pair each video with a book about pollinators so that there's some kind of lesson that could go with each little video. And each one's going to be about 5 minutes or less. And so about 2 weeks ago, I got my bees and installed them into their new homes. And so I'm going to show you this short video that walks you through how I did that.
Hey everyone, it's Chris with Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom, and I have an exciting addition that I've made to my farm. Let me show you. It's bees! I've decided to add 2 honeybee hives to my farm this year. So I decided, why don't I take you all along for the ride and show you what it's like to be a beekeeper for a year. This is Bee School. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're telling me that you spent perfectly good money on thousands of insects that, worst case scenario, could all sting you? Yeah, and this is fun for you? Like, it's a hobby? Yeah, oh yeah, it's really fun. Have you heard of video game? No. It'll be fun, trust me. Come on. Okay, so I bought 2 packages of bees. So each package has 1 queen inside, and she's actually in a little cage hidden behind these bees right here. And then there's 3 pounds of worker bees. So that's roughly 10,000 bees and 1 queen. This hive will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger as long as I do everything right. So these ladies have been in these packages for about 24 hours roughly. The person I bought them from is a beekeeping supply company, and they actually drive down to Georgia, pick these up, and then drive them back overnight, and then distribute them to beekeepers. So I think these ladies are pretty anxious and ready to get out of here, so I'm gonna install them into their new homes. I'm gonna take you along for the ride. It's really, really windy outside today, and so I'm gonna do this a little bit differently than I normally would, and I'm also gonna not try to talk to you as I do it, but I'm gonna narrate over the video after the fact so that you don't have to listen to the wind howling. All right, let's go install some bees. Let me also scream this from the rooftops. I am an amateur beekeeper. I kept bees a few years ago. I haven't done it in 4 or 5 years. I want to get back into it. I know some stuff, but I am not an expert. And so I call this Bee School because I want to teach you all some things about honeybees, but also I'm going to be learning right along with you. So I might say some stuff that's not 100% accurate, or that a lot of other more experienced beekeepers would disagree with. That's okay. We're all here to learn.
Okay, here we are in our apiary. So an apiary is a collection of beehives. So here I am with my packages, and I'm going to use my hive tool to peel off this top piece of wood here. And you can see this can in here. This is a can of sugar syrup. So the people who package these bees put that feed in there, and they put a couple of tiny little holes in the bottom of the can to feed those bees for their long journey. So I'm going to start to pull that can out. And before I pull it out all the way, I want to spray these guys down with some sugar syrup. And so this is syrup that I made ahead of time.
And so I'm going to spray them down, and that's going to wet down the bees. They're going to start feeding off each other, makes them kind of sticky, and essentially distracts them and keeps them from flying all over the place once I actually open up this package up. Then I'm going to hit that down onto the table. That might seem like it's going to hurt the bees, but it actually doesn't. And you can see there's the queen cage hanging down from inside that packet. So I'm going to pull that out here in just a minute. So I'm spraying more sugar syrup into the hive, trying to get those bees distracted, while my next step is to get that queen out and get her into the hive first. The reason the queen is not with the rest of the bees is this is a new queen for these bees, and so they need to get used to her pheromones. And so basically they need to accept her as their new queen, and then they'll do everything they can to protect her. And so by putting her in a cage, it protects her for those first couple days and allows them to get used to her. So the strap here, I'm going to peel that up and pull out the queen cage. And inside this cage is a queen and a couple of attendants to help her out. And when we do a close-up here, you should be able to see a little white dot kind of dancing around in there. That is the queen. So she is a marked queen, so they use a little paint marker on her, and so it makes it easier for me to find her in the hive. So what I'll do is take her over to my hive body, and you can see those wooden slats. Those are frames, and so that's where the bees are going to make honeycomb. Before I do that, I'm going to take out this cork out of the bottom of this queen cage. And so this white stuff in there is candy, essentially, sugar candy. And so what will happen is the queen and her attendants will eat on one side, the bees in the other part of the hive will eat on the other side. And within a couple days, they're going to eat through that and release the queen from there. And so then it will be time for her to hopefully start laying some eggs and increasing the size of this hive. So I'm going to suspend her in here, kind of push her with these frames, and then she's going to stay there for the next couple days. So I'm going to put on my inner cover, and again, normally if it wasn't so windy, I would have just shaken that package of bees into the hive, but I'm going to do it a little differently today because of the wind. I don't want to disturb the bees any more than I have to. So what I'm going to do is just flip this package over on the hive and then put another empty hive body on top and allow those bees to kind of work their way down into the hive over the next couple hours. So I hit them one more time to get them loose. I'm going to flip them over that hole in the inner cover. You can see they're going to go right down and around and surround that queen, which is what I want. I'll put the hive body on top, and then I'm just going to put the outer cover on top of this. And then in a couple hours, I'll come back and check on them to make sure that they have worked their way down into that hive. So I'm going to leave them undisturbed for the next couple of days, and then within about 2 or 3 days, I'm going to open this hive back up again and make sure that the queen is out of the cage and is doing what she's supposed to be doing. All right, there you go. The bees are in their new home. All right, that's a wrap on getting my bees installed to their new hives. I really hope that you'll consider joining me for this adventure this year. We have a lot to learn together here at Bee School.
All right, so that's Bee School. I've got another video that will come out this Wednesday. I'm going to film it this weekend, assuming the weather cooperates and I can do a full inspection of my hives. And so look for that again every other Wednesday. With that first video, if you don't know this book, Honeybee by Candace Fleming, highly recommend it. Candace Fleming is an Illinois author. This is a really beautifully illustrated book. And there's a lot of cute honeybee and bee books out there, but not a lot of them are terribly accurate. This is very accurate to what actually goes on in a honeybee hive. And so can't say enough good things about Honeybee by Candace Fleming. Stephanie, did I miss it? Did you say the prize word earlier?
No, I missed it.
Do you want to say it now?
Yes, everyone. So the prize word. So when you fill out your jot form, and there's going to be a little spot on the jot form for you to put your prize word, we are going to do the prize word hungry. So our prize word is going to be hungry.
All right, very good. All right, the last video I want to show you, this is another video project I'm doing. So on the alternate Wednesdays from when I post the Bee School videos, I'm doing a series called A Minute with a Guy Who Thinks Everyone Should Have a Garden. So I have a very small farm and a very big garden. So I kind of incorporate my personal garden into our farm layout and kind of experiment with things on the farm, but also in the garden. And so my goal with this video series is to talk about a number of things that happen in agriculture, whether it be on my farm or in more large scale farms, and then show how those things, same thing, can be applied in the garden but oftentimes in different ways. And so in this video, I talk about cover crops, which are becoming more and more popular. And you might have seen more farmers using cover crops here recently. And I think we're probably going to see that continue to be the trend. So I talk about cover crops and how they could possibly be applied into the garden as well. So I'll show you this short video here before we end.
Hey, it's Chris with Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom. You may have noticed as you drive around, some fields this time of year that normally would still be bare soil are growing something, and they're lush and green. Chances are these farmers are growing cover crops. And today I want to talk to you about cover crops on the farm, but also in the garden. This is a Minute with a Guy who thinks everyone should have a garden. There's basically two ways you can think about crops that a farmer would grow. There's a cash crop that they would harvest and then try to sell, and then there's a cover crop that is meant to cover the soil. So there's lots of reasons that farmers would use cover crops in their field. It could be to prevent erosion, it could be to minimize weed pressure, it could be to add organic matter to the soil. Lots of different cover crops that farmers can grow. I'm actually standing in my neighbor's field right here, and they planted this cover crop last fall. The field sat bare all winter, and then early spring this cover crop started to grow. And actually they came in yesterday and they planted soybeans into this living cover crop. They'll come back in a few days and they'll spray an herbicide over the cover crop that will kill the cover crop and allow the soybeans to come up through it. And I'm assuming will reduce weed pressure for them in the early stages of their soybean plant growth. So there's a lot of different ways that farmers are starting to incorporate cover crops more and more into their crop rotations, but they shouldn't be having all the fun. There's lots of ways that gardeners can also incorporate cover crops into their rotation. I've actually started experimenting with that on my garden and on my little farm as well. And so let me show you some of the ways that I'm starting to use cover crops. So here's a few beds that I planted with cover crop last fall. Let me show you what they looked like last fall going into winter. So when I planted these cover crops, this was my first time experimenting with them, and I wanted them to do a few things. I wanted them to add organic matter to the soil. I wanted them to protect the soil for beds that I wasn't growing on. So I wanted to keep roots actively growing in the soil, to keep those microbes and bacteria and fungi and all those things actively going in the soil, even though I didn't have a cash crop to plant on them. So I chose a mix of oats and radishes. One of the other reasons that I chose this blend is I needed something that would winter kill. We typically don't use herbicides on our farm, and so I didn't want to grow something as a cover crop that would continue to grow in the next spring and then turn into a weed for me. So I needed something that would naturally kill because of the cold in the winter, and then I could mow it down and incorporate it into the soil and then be ready to plant another cash crop again. You don't really need any specialized equipment. I literally planted this with a red Solo cup, and I just filled it up, and I measured out how much I wanted to plant per bed and just spread it with that cup, lightly raked it in and watered it a few times, and that was it. And then I just let it grow. Cover crops do have a spot in your garden potentially. Depending on what you want to accomplish with them, you really don't need any specialized equipment to add some cover crops into your garden. Even if you're growing in raised beds, you could still try out some cover crops. So there's a ton of different options. It's something worth experimenting with, but think about what you want to do. Do you want to add organic matter? Do you want to just protect your soil over the winter months? Do you want to provide some kind of habitat for pollinators? I mean, there's all sorts of different things that you can do with cover crops that allow you to have a better cash crop or a better garden crop the following year. The growing popularity of cover crops is a really exciting trend in agriculture, but keep in mind, not all cover crops are created equally, and there's always different contexts for different types of farming, so they don't work in all those different contexts. However, if you're interested in cover crops and want to try to add them to your garden, now's the time to do a little research and plan on how you can add them this year. Thanks for watching.
All right, so that's the Minute with a Guy who thinks everyone should have a garden. I know I call it a Minute with a Guy. I'm never going to have them be only a minute, because once I start talking, I can't possibly stop talking after a minute. So especially when I'm talking about this kind of stuff. So again, those are not necessarily meant specifically to show to your students, although they would be fine. But I am trying to connect those concepts to lessons and books that would pair well in your classroom. If you wanted to start introducing some of those concepts to students, we're going to give you some resources to be able to do that. And then hopefully the video can give you a little more insight into knowing how to talk about those things as well. All right, so we're going to transition here and talk about some of our summer offerings here.
All right, so we are super excited for our summer teacher trainings that we have come up. are coming up in June and July. And so first of all, every county in Illinois, whichever county you're in, they are going to be having local opportunities. So please contact your county ag literacy coordinator to learn about what opportunities you have there. But for us, we also have virtual opportunities every Tuesday morning in June and July, starting at 9 a.m. And they're just going to be an hour like all of our PD sessions have been. And so how this is going to work is we have 4 blocks. Each block is 2 different sessions. So our first block is natural resources. So we're going to talk about all different things, natural resources, lessons, all of those things. Our second block is going to be focused on livestock. Our third block is going to be focused on row crops. And then our final block at the very end of July is going to be focused on specialty crop. And so when you start, so our first block is going to be 2 weeks. So the first Tuesday in June and the second Tuesday in June. And if you participate in our first week, then and then sign up, the first 50 people who fill out a reflection from week 1 of the block will then get sent a package of all of the activities, all the materials for the activities that we are going to be doing for week 2. So week 1 is very much an overview. We're talking about different activities, giving information about these different natural resources. And then week 2, we are going to do hands-on activities and show you how to complete some of these activities. And then of course, we're pairing them with our, favorite ag themed books and all of that fun stuff. So if you join us for the first week of each block and are in one of the first 50 to sign up, then we will send you a box of goodies with all of the materials that you need to complete the activities that we are going to be doing hands-on for that second week. All of our sign-up stuff is on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our blog. You can find it everywhere. And if you have been participating in our PDs or any of our summer stuff from last year, we've sent emails out to sign up. And so we have that sign up available for all of the blocks right now. Chris, am I missing anything with that?
No, that was great. The only thing I would add is, and those of you who are joining us today probably know this already. So we're not an approved provider, and so we can't give you PDCH ourselves. However, we do give you that certificate of completion that you can take to your local district, your local provider, and work with them in order to get that PDCH. Every school is a little bit different in how they handle that. Some of the ROEs are a little bit different in how they handle it, but it's possible to do that. It might be worth a conversation if you're wanting to get that PD credit this summer. Have that conversation, let them know what we're doing, and then you can kind of figure out the most efficient way to make sure that you're able to input that in and get that PD. And so if you have more questions about that, you're welcome to email me, but people have been doing that with our PD all year long, and it works just fine that way, but it might make it a little easier if you have that conversation ahead of time. So potentially, if you attended all these, you could get 8 hours of PDCH through us this summer. So we're pretty excited about that. It's going to be our first time doing it that way. So we hope you'll consider joining us for it. All right, we have 2 other opportunities coming up this summer. I'm hosting a summer book club as well. And so we're going to do this, we're going to have 2 sessions essentially. So middle of July will be the introduction session. And then the first week of August will be the final session where we discuss the book. And so we chose 2 of our favorite chapter books. These are both so good. So the one is called The Thing About Luck. This is a book about wheat farming, but it highlights labor that is migrant labor that travels around the country in order to harvest this crop. And this is an Asian family who the grandparents have had to step in and go back to work because the parents get called away for a reason. And so a really great book told from the perspective of this young girl. Has a lot of really great agriculture information in it, but also all this other great family information and insight into what it's like to be an immigrant and all sorts of great stuff. And so a really, really good book. Flip the Bird is a book about, it's told from the perspective of a high school boy who is getting into falconry. So capturing these adolescent falcons and using them for hunting, and then starts liking a girl who is involved in a animal rights group. And so he's conflicted on how he's going to deal with that. And so a lot of great kind of social issue things going along with that. And we'll talk a little bit about animal rights and how farmers are trying to treat their animals well and those kind of things also. So basically what you'll do is if you want to sign up for this, if you sign up and attend the first session, we'll do introductions. We'll talk a little bit about the books. And then whoever signs up and attends that first session, we're going to mail you a book for free. And so we'll mail you the book, and then we're going to wait 3 weeks, give you time to read the book. And both of these are very quick reads also, by the way. We'll give you time to read the book, and then we'll host that second session. And then at that point, we'll be split into 2 groups. Whoever chose The Thing About Luck will be on, I think, Wednesday night, and then Flip the Bird will be on Thursday night. And so again, the link's there to sign up for that. We're pretty excited about that. This is our first time doing a book club like this. And so we hope you'll consider joining us for that. The other opportunity here this summer, right before we get back to school, is our Get a Grant workshop. So we put our grant program on hold last year because there was so much uncertainty with everything going on with the pandemic. We're bringing that back. And so there's 2 options. You can get a classroom grant from us to do some kind of classroom project that highlights agriculture in some way. And then we also have a book grant. And so we've chosen, I think, maybe 20 some titles that are in different collections. And you can choose which collections, how many copies of each book that you want. And you can use up your grant money to buy as many books as you can from that, and we'll ship you those books. And so Stephanie's going to host this Get a Grant workshop, and essentially she's going to give you some tips and tricks on how to make sure your application kind of stands out above the rest. And she's also going to highlight a few of the books that we're using and then give you some lessons and things that can go with those. And so it's meant to kind of be an idea generator for you, give you some ideas on how you might be able to use this funding in your classroom, and then also help you best fill out that application to try to get that grant as well. And so that's going to be the first week of August. Again, if you go to this link here, the iaitc.co/get-a-grant, there's a sign-up sheet to join the mailing list, and we'll communicate with you again in probably middle of July. And then that gives you a little bit more information about the grants too. The grants are due the middle of October, so that gives you plenty of time to get signed up and get that application filled out. So that's our final 2 opportunities coming this summer. If you want to continue to stay up to date with us, we're continuing to use our blog here, beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com. We share frequently on Instagram and Facebook. The videos we highlighted earlier are available on our blog. We post them to Facebook, and then we also have them on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't followed us on YouTube, we've produced a lot of YouTube videos in the past year. And so there's a lot of good stuff up there as well. Many of them would be good to show in your classroom as well. All right, so don't forget to fill out that reflection. The reflection link is included in the email that I sent you. You can also see it on here, iaitc.co/marketpd. Fill that out, and we'll mail you a special gift from the Illinois Specialty Growers Association.
Yep, and don't forget your keyword is hungry.
There you go, yep. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll stay on for just a moment here. If you have questions, want to add anything to the Q&A, we'll kind of check that out. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate the chance to talk to you about these things. And please reach out if there's any ways that we can help you continue to incorporate agriculture into your classrooms.